Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to take a look at the best civilizations in AoE2 as of 2025, but with a twist of looking just at Low Elo, which we'll define as being under 850, or roughly the lowest 25% of ranked players. This actually includes a wide range of abilities, from completely new players to others with over 1,000 games played, and if anything, skill level in this range varies more than really any other quartile. Now, just to set this all up for a moment, I want to head off the idea that civilization choice doesn't matter for these players, which is a perception I see too often. The idea is everyone at this level has so many inefficiencies and mistakes in their play that civilization advantages don't move the needle. But that idea is not grounded in reality, or else what we'd expect to see is that all civs are performing equally well. To illustrate how far that is from reality, here are some highest and lowest civilization win rates, and one of these is the data for less than 850 Elo, and the other is for 1200 rated plus. If you think civilization choice doesn't matter at Low Elo, then confidently tell me which one is which by looking at this. The range from high to low is almost indistinguishable, with a similar range from the high 50s to the mid 40s at the low end, and if you're curious, here are the labels. This also just makes a lot of sense, as the Elo system is trying to match players with others they have a 50% chance to beat, and one of the things that can skew an otherwise balanced game now and then is a civilization advantage. Where there is a difference at Low Elo is which civs you find at the top and bottom. A good civ for high Elo players is often defined by an early food or wood bonus, or help with a unit transition, and you can trust those players to have the micro to exploit certain units. Whereas at lower levels, there's much more idle time, and the micro is more inconsistent, among other things, which allows different sorts of units and bonuses to shine, as we'll see. With that context and admittedly long introduction as a primer, we're ready to jump in at number 10 with the Sicilians. They're a perfect example of what I was just saying, as if you ask the top 1% of players, from their perspective, this civ is objectively the second worst performing, and it wouldn't be wrong to say it's a weak civ at that level. Yet for Low Elo, it's a completely different story, with a very obvious pattern happening. So why are they getting better and better at lower levels? Looking at the civ, they're very good at a slightly unusual opening, having plus 100 stone to start, donjons instead of towers, which can then create sergeants, and take less bonus damage from counters. Being tower rush is one of those things that can really throw Low Elo players off their game, and knowing when you have the villager numbers to charge down a tower, whether you should build your own defensive tower, or if you should just run away and ignore it, is something that takes practice to build that intuition, especially when it's against sergeants instead of regular villagers. I also think the faster built castles help in a similar way, and would also point to First Crusade giving players an instant injection of military units. A very common mistake at Low Elo is not building military early enough and being unprepared. So again, those near instant units from your town centers are something that works particularly well at this level. Whether you're afraid Sicilians might encourage bad habits, and learning off-meta strategies is a separate discussion, but they give you an instant sense of the sort of civilizations that might be showing up here and tend to work at this level. Next though, we take a hard turn with the Vikings. We're going to see a bit of an infantry theme on this list, though I don't think it's the infantry aspect that makes Vikings so good, but simply their economy with free wheelbarrow and handcart. This is a civ that's amazing at high levels, where players can fully utilize that advantage. And if anything, Vikings are underperforming that potential at lower levels. But at the end of the day, that eco bonus just carries them kicking and screaming into the top 10. Wheelbarrow is a nearly 15% boost to farming and leads to a 3 villager advantage for Vikings. As we'd expect, it's those 30 to 45 minute long games with time to boom that Vikings really max out their advantage, and they have enough versatility between good crossbows and infantry to use it. Next up are the only true archer civ on the list, with the Ethiopians. While there isn't necessarily enough of an eco bonus to impress a high-level player, they get some free resources when aging up, combined with faster firing archers and a free pikeman upgrade. A straight archer play gets a bad rap at high elo because it can be countered by one-range skirmishers, but I actually think it's far less punished at this level. Britons are of course more popular as the beginner archer civ, but actually perform much worse in the stats, partly because their extra range bonus doesn't kick in until Castle Age, while Ethiopians get the extra resource bump and faster firing right away in Feudal. Ethiopians are also a top pick on team games at Low Elo as well, and again outperform Britons, though I would say 1v1 land maps are mainly the focus here. Moving on, we come to the Japanese. Looking at how their rank has shifted over the last few patches, it's a recent development to see them this high, thanks to the infantry overhaul. Combined with the fact it's the early game they're winning most often, the story here is clearly a faster attacking men-at-arms play. Personally, I think Men-at-Arms is the strongest non-cheese opening in Low Elo, as it hits early, is relatively easy to pull off, can threaten buildings unlike Scouts, and is less micro and attention demanding than Scouts, who can die to just a few spear hits if you look away for a moment. Any amount you can have the focus be in your opponent's space is extra important at this level, especially with infantry's ability to break through walls and buildings, while Japanese then have the flexibility to follow up an early advantage with just about anything. Next up, we have the Khitans. Though you have to be a bit careful here, as there's a smaller sample size with this one. One thing we know from the data is high-rated players play more often, plus they're more likely to buy DLCs, so the sample size is particularly small when looking at the bottom quartile for newer civs. Still, the big story, if we trust the data, is a massive mid-game spike from their pastures paying off, similar to what we saw with Vikings. Khitans on paper do have a great scout rush with double attack upgrades and faster training time, but that shows up much more clearly in mid to high elo and is notably absent from low elo stats, again suggesting to me that infantry and not scout rushing civs seem to work best at this level. Still, Khitan pastures, just like Vikings, push them into the top tier anyway, in lieu of just all the extra resources you have to work with. Moving on, we're back to another infantry civ with the Malay. They're fairly solid across the board at any skill level, though possibly for different reasons. The three things that jump out about this civ are their faster aging up, which I suspect matters a bit more at higher elo, cheaper battle elephants, which is maybe a factor, though the other battle elephant civs aren't doing especially well at low elo, and then of course there's the free infantry armor. At low elo, free things you don't have to remember is extra nice, as well as the fact notice it encourages infantry, continuing that hard to miss theme. I suspect that free armor plus the faster castle advance in particular are working together to land them in the top 5, given their clear mid-game edge, though maybe cheap elephants are doing a bit of work here as well. Next up at number 4, we have the Wu. Again, small sample size with the newest DLC, but a few interesting things jump out here. First, Wu have the shortest average game length of all civilizations at this level, and combined with the 4th highest win rate tells us there's something they're doing that's getting opponents to resign early. There are some things to explain that, including free food for each military building constructed, which is great for rushing, and infantry HP regeneration, but you really can't overlook the GN swordsman. It's had its melee armor reduced, but I suspect it's still doing the heavy lifting here with its novelty factor. It has a hidden +4 attack against archers, along with high pierce armor, 2 different modes with changing stats, as well as its main counter being the swordsman line due to bonus damage, which at least some players at this level may not know about or encounter often enough to figure out. Though I should also point out Wu are a top performing civ at all elo ratings, so it also is just a good civ either way. Moving on to number 3, we have the Jurchens. Again, a high-level player would be very unlikely to call them a top 3 civ, but at lower levels they're doing great, albeit with the same new DLC small sample size going on. Clearly, looking at the result by elo rating, something is working here at lower levels, especially in the mid-game. Again, novel units are the easiest thing to point to, between the faster attacking fire lancers, explosive grenadiers, and rocket cards. Again, we notice the lack of a strong eco bonus isn't a hindrance at this level, and you could also speculate about less friendly fire being better for players with more inconsistent unit control. It turns out Jurchens were pay to lose for competitive players, but have been quietly one of the best civs for low elo. Surprisingly, there's no infantry focus, but I chalk this one up to the novel units. Next up at number 2, that was a surprise break, but now we're back to infantry civs with the Romans. They're a high-performing civ at pretty much any level, and a 5% eco boost across the board will unsurprisingly do that. But the fact Malay's free armor for infantry seem to help them so much makes me think the Romans' double armor upgrades have to be playing a role here too. The swordsman line early with armor seems to be a hidden key to success at lower levels, and I also suspect scorpions play better at low elo because of less perfect mangonel use by opponents. A great early men-at-arms play with a strong economy the whole way through the game sounds like a perfect recipe for a top civ, though amazingly they're not number 1. The number 1 civ is actually a doozy. I suspect you would sooner find a high-level player call F tier than A or S, but going by the list to this point, it really shouldn't be a surprise in the context we've set up, and it's the Bulgarians. You'd be hard-pressed to find high-level players that would call this civ amazing, yet for sub 850 elo, they consistently are, for many patches now, particularly after the swordsman line buffs, but even before that. There's no early eco bonus, and their archer line is terrible, but you have automatic upgrades for your militia line and cheaper and faster research blacksmith techs, which we've already seen follow big themes throughout the video. The Krepos then adds in some easy map control, and stirrups for the faster attacking knights is good too. But I think we should give extra credit to the Conic, which is a combination of a cavalry and infantry unit. I think that unit in particular baits a lot of low elo players into spamming pikemen, while the dismounted version handles those pretty easily. We've seen slightly counterintuitive units appear in the list already, and this has to be one of the worst defenders. Personally, I love that the number 1 civ by the stats basically just combines all the trends throughout the whole list. It's interesting how much of what works at high levels just doesn't translate to low elo, where the keys to success seem to be civs that encourage infantry, blacksmith upgrades, building fortifications, novel unique units, and are indifferent to or even specifically lack an early eco bonus. Either way, it's just some information and something to think about, and that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.